Welcome back to another episode of The Herd Truth. As always, I'm your boy, Danny Farrar, hosting it, sharing with you people that are going to let you learn that there's a hard truth that the successful embrace, that the weak run away from. And if you're going to be able to learn to face the storms in life, then you've got to be able to accept and face those herd truths. And listen, I always enjoy, the great thing about doing a podcast is I don't have to talk to anybody I don't like. So everybody that I have on the podcast is obviously people that I like and respect. But one of the, if not the most respected man in my life is Master Mike Moses. And the man has put me on a path and given me opportunities that just, I would not be where I was not if not for this man right here. One of the best humans I've ever met. And we were having a conversation before he jumped on, and Mike said a saying to me years ago, and I have never ever forgot it. And I think it's a perfect segue into where we're at in the academy mindset. You told me one time, you said, everybody wants to be varsity, but most people are just JV. And that has stuck with me for so long. And I think that I can really see how that comes out in doing what you do in the martial arts community. But I wanted to lead with that because you talked about prior to getting on here, is like, listen, like, we were talking about the difference between health and performance, and there's just some reality. Anybody that says size doesn't matter, I don't think has ever been in an actual physical confrontation. But you talk about, listen, I'm not trying to produce ninjas. I'm trying to make people safe. Could you go into what you mean by that?
100%. First of all, I got to lead off too by thanking you, and I love seeing your growth throughout the years. And I remember where you came from and where you are now, and it just warms my heart when I see. And having you on my Facebook is the most interesting thing ever. So you're the most charismatic guy I know. The way you can articulate your viewpoints. I just enjoy it so much. So I want to thank you for that. My daily dose of Danny always keeps me motivated. But yeah, Danny, there's this quote I wanted to give you at the end because I love you like a brother and like a son. Watching you grow into what you are now has just been a joy. And you know, this is going back to your question. This little quote I got, and it's weird because the universe talks to me all the time. I actually saw this like 2 days ago, and I know I was doing this podcast, so I wanted to read it to you. But you can't teach intensity. Some are born with fire in their eyes. They're all in all the time. Every moment matters. Every details matters. No second is wasted. Their attention pierces your soul. They act with unstoppable urgency, agency, and intention. It's rare, it can't be taught, but it can be spread because it's contagious. They push everyone around them to be a greater version of themselves. And that is you. And that's what when I read that, I was like, I gotta tell Danny this. But I was gonna save it for the end, but it kind of leads off into what we were just talking about. You know, everybody has this idea of how they teach martial arts and what they want to accomplish, and every academy you walk in is a direct image of whoever's leading it. So you're going to walk into some schools, and some schools the owner thinks this way and it's going to show. Okay, let me give you one perfect example, and don't take this as a knock because there is a school for everybody. Okay, so mine's completely different. It comes from my background, but there's schools out there where I honestly watch somebody on YouTube teaching class while he's smoking a bowl. They
Yeah.
have a contest out there in jiu-jitsu world where the prize is like a pound of pot. You know what I mean? So there's academies for everybody in every different shapes and every different ways. There's fight academies, there's sport academies, and these things just blossom, right? Because bottom line is MMA and jiu-jitsu are the most functional martial arts. I'm not gonna try to hurt anybody's feelings, but and people do it for different reasons, but these are two most important things for self-defense, and to me the most functional. So I'll move on from that. But to make everybody a ninja, it's just not realistic. Okay, so what I try to do is take that normal person and focus on that. And then from that pool of people, we do have guys that do turn into ninjas. But the program is set up for that normal guy, meaning when you come in the door, we're going to spend time, assess you, give you, a basic physical assessment, place you in the program at a very basic level. And the main number one thing I'm thinking about is safety. Number two is have fun. So that's what you're going to do when you come in. And throughout the days of training there, you're going to see where the skill levels are and how far you're going to go. But with those two things are always in mind, that's what my academy was built on. Safe and fun, and the normal guy, not these super athletes. We had a new kid come in that's a wrestling coach, high level wrestling coach, and he just started training jujitsu. 2 months later, he wants to do a jujitsu competition, and I put him in the competition. And that whole week, we just work on one specific thing, just don't get caught in the guillotine. So basically, he gets caught in the guillotine, does exactly what we say, boom, boom, boom. But after, it was hilarious because I was telling my buddy, I was like, it was amazing because 6 different people came up to me and told me that they trained him to do that. And it just made me laugh. And I was like, and they probably did. They worked with him. Everybody gravitated towards this guy because they could tell that this guy is a superhuman being. His skill levels were this high already. And everybody wants to gravitate towards that guy to teach him, which I love. I wish I had a room full of them, but that's not where you see the Evolve Academy at. Evolve Academy is that normal guy that wants to try to get to that level of this guy. And that's where most of my curriculum focus is. And out of this, we have a lot of this. So that's basically back to your quote of not everybody's going to be a ninja, just few. So
I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. I'm actually mad because I really respect the guy, and I don't know why I can't think of his name. He owns Trident Academy.
oh, Seafood Pat Trey.
Yes. So he said something one time, and I've actually, I thought it was an interesting take. I'd like to explain what he said. I think you may have been there when he said it, but I want to I want to figure out your thought process on the difference because I don't know. You may have heard people use the term McDojo, right? Basically, these academies where you can go to where they're just teaching stuff that honestly, if anybody has any semblance of skill, what they're teaching isn't going to work, right? And people buy into it, like maybe I'm going to touch you or force and you're going to fall down and all that shit, right? But one of the things that he said was he was like, listen, when he's promoting, and he's legit. So like for those people who don't know, like he's super legit. He's not running no bullshit academy. But I like the way that he approached it. He goes, when I'm promoting at your skill level today versus your skill level when you started, right? And so if you get to a certain point, like you might be a brown belt, right, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You might not be able to whoop every other brown belt or even most brown belts, but you're a brown belt compared to where you came in the academy day one 10 years ago. When you're looking at promoting people, how do you manage that? Because there is the reality of what you're saying is that there are some people that could train for the rest of their life. And there could be that, a D1 level wrestler that comes in, takes BJJ. On day one, they can beat him. You know what I'm saying? Like even as a black belt, they're probably never going to beat that guy. But when you're promoting, how do you gauge that? I've always wondered.
I have a set curriculum, and everybody, it's based on the technique they learn. And like Pat has said, where they are, where they come to. Like you said as well, the D1 wrestler story. Um, you had the two brothers that were in Utah, Mark Schultz, Dave Schultz. I don't think Dave Schultz ever made it to Utah, but Mark Schultz, gold medalist, but trained with my jiu-jitsu instructor, Pedro Sauer. And that was exactly right. After 6 months of jiu-jitsu, he just tore through the whole room. Black belts, purple belts, brown belts. He just annihilated all of them. Americana, Americana, Americana. Teach him that. Boom, game over. But he never got his black belt for like 20 years, and I think it was a little bit of a headbutt against Pedro. But Pedro was like, he can submit everybody, but he doesn't know jujitsu. He doesn't know my curriculum. He doesn't know guard. He doesn't know the rest of the intricacies of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So he didn't give him a black belt. He finally came back around and spent time learning all that. So now I think Mark Schultz is a black belt under Pedro. But it was a good story to me because it actually showed me, because that's all when I came up with. When I came up was in Pat Trey's era, where we were just, if you weren't tapping every single person out, didn't matter the size, didn't matter, the shape the person was in. If he was a blue belt, to get the purple belt, you had to tap every single person out in the room and win championships before you got moved up. That was how it was done. And that's, some of the old school guys still do that. My buddy down in Camp Springs, Lloyd, he still does that. Like, if you don't win, you don't get promoted. You know what I mean? So, it's just a different mentality. So I have a curriculum that, based on skill sets. And if you match those skill sets, you may not be the best guy at that level because of your age, because you have a family, you have all these hours you put in. To me, that should not, years later, as I grew as a martial artist, that should not be the determining factor who you can beat, because then you would only have a room full of like 3 or 4 guys. You know what I mean? So
Well, I mean, the point that you
I
said
think
earlier
the
was fascinating.
majority of martial arts. What's that? I'm sorry.
I was just saying the point that you said earlier was fascinating. I never thought about it in that way. It was like, yeah, you can tap everybody, but you don't know jujitsu. I never heard it
You don't
phrased
know.
like that. That's. I mean, it's honestly kind of deep.
Yeah, it was real deep, and that's the curriculum I have, the personal defense system curriculum. It's based off certain skill sets, and when you get to green belt, you actually have to put it in live, actual hand-to-hand combat where we spar. So it's controlled. You're not going in there to do an MMA match, but you do have to learn to punch. You have to learn to get hit. You have to learn distance and range, all those things. But you can't get past green belt level without sparring. Okay. So for me and my uh, ideas of taking everybody, you have a baseline curriculum. And if they make it, then they get promoted. And everybody spars, whether you're in jujitsu or in the personal defense system. Everybody has to spar, because I think that's what separates actual. If you're going to say McDojo from an actual self defense academy that's teaching realistic self defense, we got to do the combat part. We got to do the, and when I say that, people get scared. I don't want to scare people from coming in, because I take you from zero and then get you as high as you can go. You're 100, zero to your 100. But I do it in a very safe environment. But if you want to get to that level of black belt, you are going to have to do hand to hand combat, which there's no way around that in a self defense situation. You know what I mean? So if it goes hands on, we're going live. So that's why everybody that talks about McDojo, and people have called my school a hobbyist school. All these guys. I read the comments. I love reading them. I'm sure you love them too. Any press is good press, but
Yeah.
some people have talked about Evolve Academy, and they're like, "Oh, that Mike's just a hobbyist." I took that as a compliment, man. You know what I mean? So I'm a hobbyist with, MMA, UFC guys, hobbyist with national and world champions. But yeah, I am a hobbyist school. I am the school for the dad that works 40 hours to put food on his table, that has kids, that want to just come in and doesn't want to get hurt, wants to have fun, wants to get in shape, wants to learn something they may use in the future. Yes, I am a hobbyist school. You know what I mean? So I embrace those negativities that people thought was negativity. I like it. You know, you described it.
What the reality is with it, and again, there's always exceptions to the rule, but as a general rule, if you get somebody to a proficient blue belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, nobody's invincible. Fucking black belts ain't invincible. But if you get somebody to a proficient blue belt, I'd wager that person is pretty capable of defending themselves if there's a street situation that has to arise, other than like, obviously tools being brought into it. So even if somebody is doing it as a hobby, it's like you put 2, 3 years. And the cool thing about BJJ, I guess, is the blessing and the curse. Is like you can't just get a blue belt. You know what I'm saying? It takes years.
Yeah.
I think it took me 6 years, right? So it takes time to get that side of it. So even if somebody is doing hobbyists, if they're doing the work, they're going to get the skill set.
100%. Yeah. And honestly, people that aren't in jujitsu have no understanding of what the blue belt level is. And even when I stepped in before I started doing jujitsu, the kid that walked in that actually exposed us to jujitsu was a blue belt, and he put on the blue belt. And we all were like, because we were all like black belt, Jeet Kune Do, Thai boxing. We were all fighters, stand up fighters. We weren't doing MMA yet, of course, but and that guy came in and just a blue belt wiped the mat with every single person in the room that were these lifelong martial artists. Just like the Gracie challenge videos, he did the exact same thing. He's like, hey, man, do whatever you want to do. And at the time, I was like, well, give me some gloves because I don't want to hit you, because I'm a Thai boxer. I'm going to hurt you. He's like, no, 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 no gloves. Just do whatever you want. And that's how it started. It took about the third time that I was like, I'll be at your class.
So let me ask you
Yeah,
this,
so
because
go ahead.
I think this is such a good segue for like what we do and people like facing the tough times in their life. You talk about taking people, especially let's just stick with the term hobbyist, right? People that are coming in, they're just learning. But now they actually have to step on the mats and do that hands on. How do you get people over that hump? Like, because I'm sure that you've experienced a lot of people being scared or nervous or that side of the house. Like, how do you coach them through it and to get them to remain calm?
Well, that's awesome that you should even ask that because it actually brings up the programs that evolve and why all the affiliates. I always try to get them to follow the path I have because you're going to have those people that just don't feel comfortable ever with what you're doing on the ground, and we have systems where if you just want to learn jujitsu, we try to like introduce it in a way that it's a very comfortable way. But if they have any reservations about going to the ground, I always push them to my PDS system. And in the PDS system, you're going to learn a little bit of the ground. But when we teach the ground in PDS, it's not where the guy is like mounted on top of you. It starts with like an open guard, all the kicks from the bottom to get back to your feet. It's the sprawls, it's the stuff that keeps you off the ground. We teach the guillotine, but we teach it so you get actually comfortable with seeing the other side of the house. So basically, if they're totally against jujitsu, I just push them to the PDS side, and hopefully, eventually, just through being at the academy, they start getting used to seeing the jujitsu. Because I honestly, it's hard for me to think back to almost 30 years ago when I saw grappling for the first time. But every time I have a reservation, I do. I think back to how uncomfortable it was for this 10-year Marine veteran that did nothing but fight standing up. I was one of those guys who was like, I don't need to know all that because I'm just so quick on my feet, so quick with my hands. You're not getting me on the ground. Yeah, that didn't work out too well though. But that's my mentality because I didn't even want to deal with any of that stuff on the ground because it would look so uncomfortable. You know what I mean? But that's to answer your question. I just push them into the other program. If they do want to do straight jujitsu, we do have the 30-minute intro where we start very lightly with people touching and the self defense stuff with the wrist, and then we go to the ground. Just show them what a mounted position is, guard position is. So it's introduced very slowly. But you're right. Some people just have a very uncomfortable feeling about being on the ground. It's hard to tell people how important it is to learn it, though. It's just so hard for me because I follow tons of martial artists, and there's still martial artists out there that do nothing but stand up martial arts, and I was that guy. I was that guy that was like, if it never happened to me, I would still be that guy talking to you today, telling you you don't need jujitsu. I would be anti jujitsu. But the first time, you fight somebody that's a high level jujitsu or even a mediocre jujitsu guy that knows how to fight, you once they get you on the ground, you're like, you either got to learn it or you quit martial arts for life. That's what I'm saying. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I got to learn this or I'm going to quit because once they get you on the ground, it's just that's why you invest a lot of time on it. But it's just another sense. I used to be one more thing. I used to be very claustrophobic. Like you couldn't put, yeah, you in a sleeping bag. I'd panic, right? I didn't realize this until 10 or 11 years into my jujitsu journey that I started sleeping with a pillow on my face. I'm more comfortable now being in tight spots than I am. It relaxes me so much. And I think it was because I was the little guy in the jiu-jitsu room. There was one other smaller guy like me, but the rest of my partners were monsters. And I had to get used to being under them and just get comfortable being uncomfortable, as Danny would say. You know what I mean?
So, what made you go into teaching, starting your own academy? And I mean, you've been doing it for, I mean, you're the OG of the OGs, you know? Um, what made you decide I'm going to do martial arts academy? Why not go in and do something else? Because a lot of folks don't understand it. But at the end of the day, like running a gym, everybody thinks it's easy. Running a gym is not easy. It's a difficult job, and you've got to grind every day. So, I mean, you've been doing it for a long time. What made you start it, and what keeps you in it?
Well, this is where I always, when people say they're atheists, I say, man, you just follow my life story. I'm telling you, there's a higher power looking down upon me because I don't know if it's luck or the higher power pushed me towards these things, but I never really had a plan to be this where I'm at right now, right? And I know I probably should have, and I've made my mom cry a lot, and my everybody thinks I'm always gonna be. When I go home now, my mom still gives me money and bags of food. Right? She has no idea what I do for a living. She just thinks I'm, out there still doing the thing I was in high school doing. But I ended up, check this out, 10 years in the Corps. I saved up so much leave time because in the military they give you off for every weekend. They give you off. If the CO wants off on Friday, you got 3 days. I mean, you just don't take leave because they give you so much time off, right? So I had saved up 6 months so I could go try different jobs. That was my thing. So I got in with the Fredericksburg Police Department was one job. Then I got in with this other job that right now I look back and I could probably be in that baller status where this house would look like MTV Cribs if I took this second one. This guy, Steel Team 6 guy, started this bag company and gear company called Black Hawk Industries. And they make gear, right, for pistols and bags. And it was just the very beginning. I was his number one salesman, right? And the third job was with my instructor, Frank Cucci. But being there, I could train, all the stuff we were training, and I wanted to fight. So, of course, my mom knew which the jobs were. Everybody knew what the jobs were. My girlfriend knew what the jobs. Everybody was like, "You're crazy." I went and took the minimum wage job, right, just so I could be around the martial arts. And then I started fighting all the time and got a big name in the fight world. And then this is where I started getting kind of cocky. Everybody in Virginia Beach knew me, and everybody would come to the fights. And then I had a sword go in my eye, wooden sword. Me and my buddy were making up a demonstration we were going to do at the school. We'd done it 100 of times, you know, Filipino martial arts. And I had a sword go in my eye and blow out my lens. And they put a false lens in there, so that ended my well, they thought it ended my fight career because they told me I could never fight again. So what I did was actually start MMA promotion shows called Virginia Free Fighting Championships, and I would fight in them and basically circumnavigate the fight physical, right? I was a promoter, so I'd set up all the fights and then I'd jump in the fight. That lasted 2 times and then they caught on. So anyways, make a long story short, by then the referee that was refereeing my match was named Mario Yamasaki. And Mario Yamasaki went on to open up a school in DC and he needed help. So he asked me to come up for a year to help him with the school, and whatever I did, you know, with the stand up side, that would be my portion. So I came up here to help Mario Yamasaki. Within my mind, I would come up here for a year, help him build his school, then head back to Virginia Beach and do my thing. That was what, 6 years ago. Anyways, I'm still here. That's I got into security world. That ended up being profitable. Helped me build my school, and then you know, we we just went our separate ways, Mario and I ended up building the first Evolve was in that little place you went to, and it was just made just so I could do training with my buddies because I was making a lot of money doing security work. I was doing that full time, and so I just had that spot, and it blew up because we ended up creating a bunch of monsters and winning a bunch of tournaments and stuff. So that was the start of the Evolve, and then my boss got booted off. I was working for the AOL family, American Online. He got booted off Time Warner, so they shut down the whole security. And by then, I had started the school. So where you went to, Danny, that little spot and the big spot. We only had the little spot, and then I went ahead and leased the other side and made it into a business. So now I do the martial arts full time and security part time, but it used to be reversed.
It's funny
Does that
because
answer your question? I went off on a
yeah,
tangent
no,
there.
no, it's great. Honestly, I got to learn a lot. I was fascinated by it. But it's crazy. You're a little bit older than I am, I think. Um,
Yeah,
it's
a lot
not.
older, bro. Look at that. You got hair.
I know I got gray hair, but I got grays as the catch getting up. But
Got
it's
a
funny
nice head of hair,
because
bro.
I've actually never. It's weird because I never felt this literally until this moment, where and maybe it's just getting old. I don't know, but it's you're saying all the old spot and whatever, and I'm just and literally the part of my head is like, man, the good old days. Like, you go back and for people that, didn't experience that didn't, literally no AC, no heat, friggin' sliding in sweat, guys literally sleeping at the gym because they had no place to go. And you letting them crash in the gym. Or I mean, guys had literal rooms and offices and sleeping on bags and like it's weird how life is. Like in that moment, you're sitting there thinking to yourself, like, "Oh man, I'm gonna get out of here." But you look back at it and you're like, "Man, those were good times, man. Those were good times." It's nuts when you think about it. Like
I
some days you
I
feel old.
agree. It was
Some days you feel old, man. Like not in like a bad way, I don't guess, but you look back and you're like, son of a bitch, man. Like, there's things that you've done that you even forget that you did, like until you sit back and you take time to actually like think back on them and realize like, man, like those were special times, right? Like those were, everybody wasn't balling and shit, and it's just, you're in the middle of that grind, but those are the stories that like make your life. It's not the end. It's not the end where everybody thinks you've like made it and you're successful. Like you look back to like when it was the grind and it was every day was a fight. And there's a lot of joy to be found in that.
I agree, man. That was those were some fun times back then, and just trying to figure stuff out where we were all going to go. And for us it was just all we thought about was just the fight, being the best. You know what I mean? And the mentalities completely changed. I think with, like you said, age, but maybe my low testosterone's kicking in. But I think I'm I think I'm wiser now on what my vision is and what I want with the martial arts. One of the things that makes me feel old is all my peers, everybody, because you said I am a little bit older. They're all retiring now, and they're all trying to move to the beach and sit on the beach and fish all day and this and that. And that's what makes me feel old. And then they always ask me that question of, Mike, when are you going to retire? That's when I start feeling old. And my answer is always this, bro. I'm like, I'm going to retire. Two reasons. Number one, I don't have enough money to retire, right? Just, you're a martial artist, you know what I'm doing. I said, number two, I can't retire because I don't know what else to do. This is what I do. This is,
Yeah.
I'll retire when I die. You're going to get the notice, a text. By then, it'll probably be holographic, whatever. It'll be, hopefully, I'll live another 20. But you're going to get a text one day or just a blast that says, hey, Mike was on the mat and his heart stopped. That's the way I'm going to go out. Or it'll be Mike was on the way to the mats, or it will be Mike was leaving the mats. But one way or another, that's the way I'm retiring. But on the flip side of that, everybody retires and they try to open up a martial arts academy. So I think number one, I'm living the dream, and I don't think I'll ever retire. So
It's like there was an interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's in his 70s, maybe even close to 80 at this point in time. And they were like, "Well, did you work out this morning?" He's like, "Yeah." So I was like, "Why wouldn't I?" He's like, "I ate breakfast yesterday. Ate breakfast the day before. Brushed my teeth the day before. Like, it's who I am. You
it's
know,
who I am. Exactly.
why
That's all.
wouldn't I train?" And
Yeah.
when you look at what you do, and I see this from the outside because you're down in Germantown and I'm up in Frederick, but I watch what you guys have going on down there. And it is one of the things that I think is kind of unique about, I guess it's probably the case for everything, but I think you would really see it in what you do is it's like that old saying on Days of Confused. What's kind of wild about this is I get older and they stay the same age. Like as you continue to age, you continue to get young men and women nowadays that are coming in that are and a lot of them, like you said, those the varsities that want to train and want to go hard. So you've got these young guys and girls that are like all ramped up. They don't need TRT. They're T and me. Like they're good, right?
He
How
and
do
me.
you how did you manage that over the years? Not only the energy level to keep up with them, but also you're at that point where a lot of folks would be like, get these damn kids off my lawn, and you're in there like, come on in, train. Like, how do you continue to what tips do you have for people to continue to reconnect with younger and younger generations as you age?
I think one of the things that people don't realize till they get into the Evolve Academy specifically is all the mentorship. Like we have so many successful older adults in there that these kids that are coming in, especially the teenage years, they're looking for a path, and I don't think they're being told which way to go in life. So I think a lot of the ways that we try to do the talks after, and we keep the environment very clean. I do an interview before people come in. I make that little bubble safe, fun, but moms feel safe in there, kids feel safe in there. There's no cussing. There's no verbal languages, politics, religion, none of that. We're here for this and growing spiritually, inside, physically outside, and hand to hand skills. Those are the main things we're here for. I think those are what the kids are so attracted to. I
Yeah.
make all the guys on my MMA team, the guys that you see on the Cagezilla, the team, the jiu-jitsu guys, I make them all do the classes. We have an MMA training, but they all do the classes. And they work with the guy that basically thinks he can't punch his way out of a paper bag, and they mentor him. And these guys are training with the guy they just watched on TV, these kids. And they're mentoring them, they're bringing them up, and it's just an incredible atmosphere that I think really that to me gives me joy, seeing that I'm connecting with this next generation and that they're eventually they're going to leave. They're going to go off and do amazing things. All these guys are going to go off and do amazing things. But they're always going to remember me and the Evolve Academy and the people there. They're always going to be connected to that because of what happens with not the skills that we're teaching, but what happens off the mat. These little talks in the locker room, these little, coaching tips and these little things about, hey, come over here, let me show you stuff. They're going to remember that. I remember every single one of my martial arts instructors. I only remember one of my high school teachers, Miss England. Only one. No, maybe two. But I remember every single one of my martial arts instructors. And if you think about it, I got some black belts, different styles, but I spent more time with them than I spend with probably no, I spent a lot of time with my brother, my sister, but not my mom and dad. I spent more times with those martial arts instructors than anybody else in my family because my mom was working, my dad disappeared whenever. So the connections you get with these kids are going to be lifelong. And it's a huge, huge, not only responsibility, not burden, responsibility, but it's a huge honor. It's a huge honor to think about that everybody on this earth wants to think about leaving something for the next generation. And when you become a martial arts instructor, that's what you're doing. You're leaving a piece of you for the next generation. So I think that's what the biggest thing, if I had to pick about Evolve Academy, that would be the biggest thing that, that whole mentorship side. And people don't get to see it until they come in, and
Yeah.
then they're attracted to it.
As we get ready to wind up the time, what I wanted to love to give an opportunity for you to, especially somebody that's been a lifelong martial artist, is if I've got somebody out there that's listening that's thought about doing martial arts, but honestly they're intimidated by it. Maybe they are that person that's just not naturally athletic, or they are that person that's out of shape, or they're the person that's been bullied their whole life. What recommendations would you give for them in terms of how to move forward, and what tips would you give for people to look for in an academy when they're going out trying to find a place to train? So the question is, as we get ready to
Okay.
wrap this up, we've got if you're sitting down here and somebody's listening to this, and maybe they're that person that they're not in very good shape, or maybe they believe they can't fight their way out of a wet paper bag, or maybe they've been bullied their whole life, but they're looking to start martial arts, but they're just scared. Like, what recommendations would you give them? And then if they're looking for an academy, how does somebody figure out if an academy is a good fit for them?
I think that's a great question, by the way. And I actually wanted to do something to help people prepare for their journey into the Evolve Academy, do a video series, like do these exercises and you come in and whatever. And I still might do that. But I think the way to actually, and we're so connected now with social media, is start following the different people from the different things that you're interested in, because every academy, every school, every martial arts this or that has a page, and just start watching and then go in and meet everybody and then go in and do the trial program. Everybody has a trial program, but I think if you first step would be just follow them, and people can get an idea of how the person is, the head instructors or the instructors in general. They can just see how the schools are. You know what I mean? So that's where I would start. And that right there, it's why I try to put out videos all the time, is because I know people get tired of me blasting, videos out all the time, but that one video may do exactly what you're saying, touch somebody that's like, man, because Mike looks scary. That's what somebody told me. Mike, you look scary, and I don't understand that. Maybe it's the Asian, maybe it's the ears that have been mauled. I don't know, because I'm a very friendly guy, right? I don't try to be scary, but maybe if they see some of these videos and see the corny jokes I tell and see the the self deprivation I always have on myself, maybe that will make them feel more comfortable to come in. And that's on my end. That's what I try to do: reach the people that don't think they can do it. I think that to me is my biggest accomplishment when I see somebody reach a level to where they're proficient at what you and I do, and they never thought they could do it. You know what I mean? That's the joy. Not the kid that wrestling coach, that just won the big tournament. That's also a joy, but that guy could have gone anywhere and he would have been successful anywhere. Like he could have just stayed home, watched YouTube videos, and been successful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think the true stamp of like what I want to do in life is make that person that doesn't think they can do it and have success. And I think that to me is like what'll be what I'm remembered for. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's just how I think about it now. And that could change 10 years from now when my testosterone keeps going down. So, you know what I mean?
We'll get you hooked up with Eric so your TRT is good. Hey, Mike, as always, man, I appreciate this. Always a joy.
Much love, man. I love following you again, and I hope to see you this year for the years out. I wish you'd come down and give some of that Danny energy on the mats and come do
I
a
will.
workout for us or something. And
I will. I
everybody,
got to get down on. I got to get down on a Saturday, 100%. I got to get down. As
let me
always,
know
man.
when I'm gonna get a group together for you and let you run them in the dirt.
Yeah, deal. All
But
right, Mike. As always, I appreciate you. For everyone that tunes in, man, always give us a like, subscribe. If you're looking for Mike, you can find him on Instagram. Go follow Evolve Academy. Find him on Facebook, on YouTube. Absolutely follow Mike. He's the man. I'm going to tag him in everything's here. Remember, guys, the first step to the storm should always be your own. Keep living your life, head down, horns up. Until next time, fam. Salute.